Welcome to Mediocre Gaming, and today we're playing Helldivers 2. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Zero. Let's get to it. So today we're taking it Helms Deep, but with the bugs. But before we get to that, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell to be notified of all future episodes as soon as they go live. So let's get into it. So we originally had this high value asset come in after the Termicide towers were turned off, and you actually have the ability to play against either faction at this time for any defense of a world. So as long as you have a defense, you're going to see these missions pop up. So it's not just one faction, but both factions. Unlike the Termicide missions, which were only for the bugs, which makes sense. Now you can play this Helm's Deep mission for any faction, as long as it's, like I said, as long as you're defending a world. Now, one thing I think most Helldivers have figured out is that you don't want to wait, or you do want to wait. You want to wait for the mission to auto start. If you don't start up the machine, it'll automatically start up after a certain amount of time. That gives you time to set up your defenses. So absolutely take that extra time and do what you need to do in order to get the defense set up, so that when the hordes of enemies start popping up, that you can be satisfied. Not to mention the stratagems that you throw in as you're getting ready will already be on start their cooldown, so that you'll have them available again earlier. Now you've got 20 minutes, and it does take, I would say, 10 to 15 minutes in order to complete. Since the rockets, fuel, and everything on a regular schedule, it takes the same amount of time for each rocket to prep and then launch. It'll take the same amount of time in order to finish this mission. Now, what have we learned about this? Between the start of the high value asset mission until now, one of the important things to know about the mission is that you are always going to have enemies coming in, and they come in closer and closer depending on which gates have been breached already. So they start on the outermost ring, where there's 2 gates, 1 on each side, and then they'll start popping up inside those gates once they breach both of those. Now, what you don't want to happen is you do not want to have a bunch of Chargers or Bile Titans charging at the gates, because it doesn't take very long for those guys to take them down. And since the high value asset mission has been released, there's also been the Factory Striders. So in addition to the bugs having the Bile Titans show up and smash through gates relatively easily, you have Factory Striders which do the same thing, but for the robots. So for the most part, I would say you want to be close to the front But if someone's coming in with a EMF mortar or a mortar in general, you don't want to be too close, because especially with the bugs, they'll come in for a melee and then the mortar will target those guys and then you'll get taken out. So you don't want that. Now, unlike the robots where they come in from the sky, the bugs come from underground tunnels. So you're not able to throw a 500 kilogram on top of the orange smoke and take them out and close down the tunnel, at least temporarily. Instead, you have to deal with the enemies as they show up. If you've got a machine gun sentry or autocannon or mortar, those things will take care of quite a few of them. But since they're coming from different directions, it will likely, depending on placement, cause the sentry to get overrun before it runs out of ammo. It'll have to swivel to 2 different directions. I see a lot of variety of stratagems that are used on this particular mission, but a lot of people bring in one type of sentry or 2, whether it's autocannons or mortars, rocket, or like I said, machine gun or Gatling. For bugs, machine gun and Gatling works pretty well for most of them. Obviously not the heavier armor guys. Additionally, I see a lot of 120 orbital barrage. Which is a lot of fire in a relatively small space, especially if you have all the upgrades for your orbital stratagems. So depending on what your upgrades are, you may choose other stratagems based on which has the highest upgrade. So you might bring in a whole bunch of eagles. Just remember, some stratagems work better for low armor or light armor enemies versus medium or heavy armor. Some stratagems, again, work okay for medium or light, but not heavy. For example, the machine gun sentry works well on light armor, works okay on medium armor, and doesn't work at all on heavy armor. Autocannons work well on any of them, but because of the rate of fire, they work best for medium or heavy armor targets. As the time continues to tick down, you generally see more enemies popping up more frequently and more heavy armor targets. So what you don't want to happen is you don't want to have a whole bunch of Bile Titans piling up, because that will end very, very poorly for your mission. Now we're halfway. We're at, not quite. We're almost 8 minutes in. And we're halfway with the rockets launched. I didn't see what time the last one launched. So slowly but surely we're getting there. And like I said, the rockets launch on a regular time basis. So it's not like they go more or less quickly as the time or the timer counts down.
down a sentry.
Tell you, I still have kind of a bad taste in my mouth from everyone using mortar sentries poorly, basically using them on every bug mission there was, which of course caused all kinds of problems because the bugs are mostly melee creatures, and that causes a whole lot of issues when you've got an enemy coming up to melee you, and then of course someone's mortar dropping bombs on top of you.
Reloading.
So, as is the case with every sentry, you do have to be careful of where it is pointing and where it is shooting. Mortars just happen to be arcing up through the sky towards the enemies, whereas all the other ones are basically line of sight. They're going to look right at it and then start shooting. If you've got the one upgrade that lets them turn faster, that is great. That is like one of the most useful upgrades for stratagems. You get more, hit points, which is great. You've got more ammo, which is also great, but without that turning radius, it's almost a moot point. I personally kind of go back and forth between the recoilless and the anti-tank, or the EAT. Anti-tank, you can only use it once. You get 2 for every stratagem that you call in. It has a much lower cooldown, 70 seconds I think it is, instead of the 6-7 minutes for the recoilless and other support weapon stratagems.
Requesting sentry.
But you can, of course, resupply. Go to a resupply and get your ammo back for recoilless. And you need 2 packs if you're completely empty. But if you have the 4th upgrade, then 1 will fill you up from 0 to full. Yeah, so as you're going along, all of a sudden you're like getting pushed back farther and farther. Now, depending on the setup of the map, there's 2 variations at this point. One where you have the main part where the rockets launch, which is right here behind the last door or gate, and then you have the launch pad, the launch or the extraction, where the shuttle comes in. One of them you have to go all the way back towards where the rockets launch, and then get on the shuttle off to the side. And then there's this one where you have to go between the first and the second gate. But as long as you can keep the enemies from overwhelming you, so dealing with them as they show up, it should be much easier. And that's it. I hope you enjoy this video. Be sure to check us out on social media, and thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and we'll see you next time.
Freedom forever!
Requesting advance. Objective located. Going down the stairs.
Countdown initiated. Stand by for takeoff.
New mag. That's from hypocrisy. Sending in an
Extraction complete. Pelican 1 beginning ascent.
Today you've carved another foothold in the long climb to liberty. Affirmative.
PlayStation